This is not an ordinary court ruling. This is a rare moment when the United States Supreme Court said no to President Donald Trump. A decision that sent shockwaves through Washington, and it happened in Illinois. A major political and legal development has emerged from the United States Supreme Court, delivering what many are calling a rare defeat for President Donald Trump. In a significant ruling, the Supreme Court refused to grant the Trump administration permission to deploy the National Guard in the state of Illinois, particularly in and around the Chicago area. This decision effectively blocks the president's attempt to federalize military forces inside a state that openly opposed the move. What was the issue? The Trump administration argued that rising concerns over illegal immigration and public safety justified the deployment of the National Guard. According to the administration, federal intervention was necessary to restore law and order and support immigration enforcement efforts. However, Illinois state officials strongly rejected this plan. The governor and state leadership made it clear. Illinois did not consent to the presence of federalized National Guard troops within its borders. They argued that the move violated state authority and threatened the balance of power established by the U.S. Constitution. How the case reached the Supreme Court. After Illinois blocked the deployment, the Trump administration took the matter to court. Lower courts ruled against the administration, stating that the federal government lacks sufficient legal justification. Trump's legal team then appealed to the United States Supreme Court, requesting emergency relief that would allow the deployment to proceed immediately. But the Supreme Court declined. The justices refused to override the lower court rulings, leaving the deployment blocked for now. What the Supreme Court said, the Supreme Court made one thing clear. Presidential power has limits. The justices emphasized that a president cannot deploy National Guard forces into a state without clear statutory authority or an extraordinary national emergency. In this case, the court found that the Trump administration failed to identify a specific law that justified such action. Without a solid legal foundation, the request was denied. Why this is called a rare defeat? This ruling is being described as a rare defeat because the Supreme Court has often sided with Trump in emergency or executive authority cases. But this time, the court drew a line. It signaled that even the president must operate within constitutional boundaries. Several conservative justices dissented, arguing that the president should have broader authority in matters of national security. Still, the majority decision stood firm. Political impact. The ruling has immediate political consequences. Democratic leaders praised the decision, calling it a victory for the Constitution and states' rights. Illinois officials said the ruling protected their sovereignty and prevented federal overreach. Republican leaders and Trump allies criticized the court, arguing that the decision weakens the federal government's ability to address national security concerns. Political analysts say this ruling could influence future debates on immigration, federal authority, and presidential power, especially in an election climate. What this means for President Trump. For Donald Trump, this decision represents more than a legal setback. It challenges his approach to using executive power to enforce policy. It also raises questions about how far a president can go when states resist federal action. While the ruling does not permanently end the case, it places a major roadblock in front of the administration's plans. Further legal battles may follow. The bigger picture. This case is not just about Illinois. It's about the balance of power in the United States. It's about where presidential authority ends